The shimmering lights of the alien ships filled the night sky, a spectacle that captivated humanity. The streets buzzed with excitement as people gathered, eyes glued to the heavens. Scientists and military personnel scrambled to make sense of the sudden arrival, while the general public could hardly contain their awe. In a cramped control room in Houston, David Parker, a leading astrophysicist, watched the screens intently. "Are we getting any readings?" he asked, his voice tight with anticipation. "No known energy signatures," replied Sarah Kim, his colleague. "It's as if they just appeared out of nowhere. Keep monitoring. We need to understand their intentions." The ships were like nothing humanity had ever seen. Sleek, with surfaces that shifted colors and shapes in a mesmerizing display. As they descended closer to Earth, panic and curiosity fought for dominance among the populace. News networks were broadcasting 24/7, covering every angle of the event. In the Oval Office, the president convened an emergency meeting with top military and scientific advisors. David was among those called to provide insight. "We need to prepare for all possible outcomes," the president said, her face grave. "David, what's your assessment?" David took a deep breath. "Based on their technology, it's clear they're far more advanced than us. We need to approach this with caution, but also with an open mind. This could be an unprecedented opportunity for humanity." Outside, the largest ship hovered above Washington, D.C., its underside opening to reveal a beam of light. A figure began to descend. The alien ships descended with a majestic slowness, their surfaces gleaming under the sunlight. A large central craft hovered over Washington, D.C., and a delegation of world leaders assembled to greet the newcomers. David was part of the scientific team invited to the meeting. He stood among the crowd, his heart pounding. The alien leader, a tall, slender figure with shimmering skin, stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was melodious yet mocking. "We are the Zorathians. We have observed your primitive species for millennia. You amuse us with your simplicity." The gathered humans exchanged uneasy glances. David felt a knot form in his stomach. The Zorathian leader continued, its tone dripping with condescension. "You have barely scratched the surface of understanding the universe. Your technologies are crude, your societies primitive." David clenched his fists, anger boiling beneath the surface. He looked around and saw similar expressions on the faces of the other scientists and officials. This was not the encounter with advanced life they had hoped for. The president stepped forward, trying to mask her frustration with diplomacy. "We welcome you to Earth, and hope we can learn from each other." The Zorathian leader's eyes seemed to sparkle with amusement. "Learn from us? Perhaps. But it is doubtful you have much to offer in return." David exchanged a glance with Sarah. There was a silent understanding. They needed to learn everything they could about these beings, not just for knowledge, but to protect humanity from any potential threat. After the initial encounter, the Zorathians spread out, establishing bases in major cities. They demonstrated their technology, showcasing abilities that defied human understanding. People watched in awe and fear as the aliens manipulated gravity, walked through walls, and read human thoughts with ease. In a private moment, Sarah voiced what many were thinking. "They're toying with us, David. We have to find a way to understand their technology." David nodded, determination hardening his resolve. "We will, and we'll show them that humanity is not to be underestimated." Over the following weeks, the Zorathians made their presence known in every major city. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. They manipulated gravity, walked through walls, and read human thoughts as if flipping through a book. "Your brains are so underdeveloped," one Zorathian sneered at David during a demonstration. "It's a wonder you've managed to survive this long." David's frustration grew with each passing day. He spent long hours in the lab, analyzing everything they could learn from the aliens. But the Zorathians seemed invincible, their condescension stoking a simmering anger within him. David and his colleagues were subjected to endless experiments by the Zorathians. They were forced to participate in demonstrations where the aliens showcased their superior abilities. The Zorathians' disdain was palpable, and their mocking laughter echoed in David's ears long after the demonstrations ended. One afternoon, while examining the remnants of a Zorathian device, David's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp voice. "Still trying to comprehend our technology, human?" It was Zareth, one of the more contemptuous Zorathians. David looked up, forcing himself to remain calm. "We are trying to learn, yes." Zareth's lips curled into a sneer. "You are like children playing with fire. Perhaps one day you will evolve enough to understand a fraction of our knowledge." As Zareth walked away, David turned to Sarah, who had been silently watching. "We have to find a way to turn their arrogance against them." Sarah nodded. "We need a breakthrough. Something that will make them realize we're not as primitive as they think." "What if," he thought aloud, his voice barely a whisper. He dug through his closet and found the dusty journal. Flipping through the pages, he found references to latent psychic powers within humans, powers long forgotten. Could it be true? He wondered, a spark of hope igniting within him. David began experimenting in secret, following the cryptic instructions in the journal. Meditation, concentration, and strange rituals became his nightly routine. Weeks passed, and just as he was about to give up, he felt a breakthrough. One night, he managed to levitate a small object in his living room. His excitement was palpable. "This is it! We're not as powerless as they think." He knew he couldn't do this alone. David reached out to a few trusted colleagues, including Sarah. "We need to explore this further. If we can awaken these abilities in others, we might stand a chance." Sarah was skeptical at first, but after witnessing David's abilities, she agreed to help. Together, they formed a small group of scientists and military personnel who believed in the potential of these latent powers. The training was rigorous. Meditation sessions, mental exercises, and focus drills became part of their daily routines. Slowly but surely, others began to show signs of psychic abilities: telekinesis, mind reading, and even teleportation. "We need to keep this under wraps," David warned. "The Zorathians must not find out until we're ready." Late one night, while the team was practicing in the lab, David felt a sudden rush of energy. Concentrating hard, he managed to project his thoughts into Sarah's mind. She gasped, looking at him with wide eyes. "Did you just—" David nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Telepathy. We're making real progress." As their abilities grew, so did their confidence. The small victories against the Zorathians' oppressive presence were a beacon of hope. David and his team knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were no longer the helpless beings the Zorathians believed them to be. "We have to keep pushing," David urged his team. "We've only scratched the surface of what we can do." Their secret training continued, each session bringing new discoveries. The power within humanity was awakening, and David was determined to harness it. They would show the Zorathians that their mockery had been premature, and that humanity had a strength the aliens could never have anticipated. One evening, David sat in his apartment, staring blankly at the data on his computer. His mind wandered back to an old journal his grandmother had given him, filled with stories of ancient human civilizations with extraordinary abilities. He had always dismissed them as myths. "What if?" he thought aloud, his voice barely a whisper. He dug through his closet and found the dusty journal. Flipping through the pages, he found references to latent psychic powers within humans, powers long forgotten. Could it be true, he wondered, a spark of hope igniting within him. David began experimenting in secret, following the cryptic instructions in the journal. Meditation, concentration, and strange rituals became his nightly routine. Weeks passed, and just as he was about to give up, he felt a breakthrough. One night he managed to levitate a small object in his living room. His excitement was palpable. "This is it. We're not as powerless as they think." David spent long hours honing his newfound abilities. He practiced levitation, telekinesis, and mental communication, pushing the limits of what he thought possible. Each success fueled his determination to awaken these powers in others. He knew he couldn't do this alone. David reached out to a few trusted colleagues, including Sarah. "We need to explore this further. If we can awaken these abilities in others, we might stand a chance." Sarah was skeptical at first, but after witnessing David's abilities, she agreed to help. Together, they formed a small group of scientists and military personnel who believed in the potential of these latent powers. The training was rigorous. Meditation sessions, mental exercises, and focus drills became part of their daily routines. Slowly but surely, others began to show signs of psychic abilities, telekinesis, mind reading, and even teleportation. "We need to keep this under wraps," David warned. "The Zorathians must not find out until we're ready." Late one night, while the team was practicing in the lab, David felt a sudden rush of energy. Concentrating hard, he managed to project his thoughts into Sarah's mind. She gasped, looking at him with wide eyes. "Did you just—" David nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Telepathy. We're making real progress." As their abilities grew, so did their confidence. The small victories against the Zorathians' oppressive presence were a beacon of hope. David and his team knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were no longer the helpless beings the Zorathians believed them to be. "We have to keep pushing," David urged his team. "We've only scratched the surface of what we can do." Their secret training continued, each session bringing new discoveries. The power within humanity was awakening, and David was determined to harness it. They would show the Zorathians that their mockery had been premature, and that humanity had a strength the aliens could never have anticipated. Sarah was skeptical at first, but after witnessing David's abilities, she agreed to help. Together, they formed a small group of scientists and military personnel who believed in the potential of these latent powers. The training was rigorous. Meditation sessions, mental exercises, and focus drills became part of their daily routines. Slowly but surely, others began to show signs of psychic abilities, telekinesis, mind reading, and even teleportation. "We need to keep this under wraps," David warned. "The Zorathians must not find out until we're ready." The group grew as more people joined their cause, each bringing unique talents and perspectives. They developed a network of safe houses and training centers, ensuring that their activities remained hidden from the Zorathians. The training was intense, pushing each member to their limits. Late one night, while the team was practicing in the lab, David felt a sudden rush of energy. Concentrating hard, he managed to project his thoughts into Sarah's mind. She gasped, looking at him with wide eyes. "Did you just—" David nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "Telepathy. We're making real progress." Their skills improved rapidly. Small objects began to levitate more easily, and telepathic communication became almost second nature. The group's confidence grew with each passing day. As their abilities grew, so did their confidence. The small victories against the Zorathians' oppressive presence were a beacon of hope. David and his team knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were no longer the helpless beings the Zorathians believed them to be. One evening, during a particularly intense training session, Sarah managed to teleport across the room. The group erupted in cheers, the air thick with a newfound sense of empowerment. "We have to keep pushing," David urged his team. "We've only scratched the surface of what we can do." Their secret training continued, each session bringing new discoveries. The power within humanity was awakening, and David was determined to harness it. They would show the Zorathians that their mockery had been premature, and that humanity had a strength the aliens could never have anticipated. David knew they needed more than just abilities. They needed a plan. He and Sarah began devising strategies for when the time came to confront the Zorathians openly. They gathered intelligence, mapped out enemy positions, and identified weak points in the Zorathian operations. "We need to be ready for anything," Sarah said, her voice firm. "The Zorathians won't go down without a fight." David agreed. "And we won't be alone. There are others out there who will join us when the time is right. We need to be their beacon of hope." The group continued to grow, attracting individuals from all walks of life. Some came from the military, others from academia, and many were ordinary citizens who had discovered their latent abilities. United by a common goal, they trained tirelessly, preparing for the inevitable showdown with the Zorathians. As the day of reckoning approached, David felt a mix of anticipation and dread. He knew the stakes were high, but he also knew that humanity had never been more united or determined. They were ready to show the Zorathians that Earth was not theirs to conquer. Despite their best efforts, the Zorathians began to suspect something. Their leader, Zareth, grew curious about the sudden changes in human behavior. He summoned David for questioning. "You've been unusually quiet, human," Zareth said, his eyes narrowing. "What are you hiding?" David felt a cold sweat trickle down his spine. "Nothing, Zareth. Just trying to understand your advanced technology." Zareth's gaze was piercing. "Do not test my patience, human. We will find out your secrets." David returned to the lab, urgency driving him. They had to accelerate their training. The team redoubled their efforts, practicing in deeper secrecy and developing contingency plans for any possible Zorathian intervention. One evening, as David and Sarah analyzed recent data, an alert flashed on their monitors. Zorathian ships were converging on their location. Panic gripped the team as they scrambled to secure their research and prepare for a potential assault. David turned to Sarah. "We have to evacuate, now." Sarah nodded, her expression grim. "I'll gather the others. We need to move fast." The team managed to relocate to a safer hideout, but the close call made it clear that their activities were no longer completely hidden. They needed to strike before the Zorathians fully uncovered their plans. One night, a squad of Zorathians raided the lab. Alarms blared as David and his team scrambled to defend their work. Sarah managed to create a psychic barrier, holding the aliens at bay long enough for David to activate a defensive mechanism they had developed. The Zorathians retreated, but the message was clear. They knew something was up. "We need to be ready for a full-scale attack," David said, his voice steely with determination. David and his team had anticipated such an event and had prepared for it. They quickly relocated to an underground facility, designed to be impenetrable to Zorathian scans. Here, they intensified their training and developed new strategies for countering the alien threat. During a strategy meeting, Sarah voiced a concern that was on everyone's mind. "What if they find us here too? We can't keep running forever." David nodded. "We won't. It's time to take the fight to them." Using their enhanced abilities, David and his team launched a series of covert operations against Zorathian outposts. These were not large-scale battles, but strategic strikes aimed at gathering intelligence and weakening the alien forces. One such mission involved infiltrating a Zorathian command center. David and Sarah, along with a few others, used their telepathic and telekinetic abilities to slip past guards and retrieve critical data from the Zorathian mainframe. As they sifted through the information, they discovered plans for a massive Zorathian offensive aimed at quelling the human resistance once and for all. "We need to act fast," David said, his eyes scanning the data. "They're planning to strike soon, and we need to be ready." The team devised a plan to disrupt the Zorathian offensive. They would use their abilities to create diversions and sabotage key elements of the alien infrastructure. The goal was to delay the attack and buy humanity more time to prepare. On the night of the planned Zorathian assault, David and his team executed their plan with precision. Psychic barriers disrupted communication channels, telekinetically hurled objects, damaged critical machinery, and telepathic illusions created chaos among the Zorathian ranks. The Zorathians were taken by surprise, their well-coordinated offensive thrown into disarray. As David and his team regrouped, he looked around at his comrades. "This is just the beginning. We've shown them that we can fight back." Their success in disrupting the Zorathian plans boosted the morale of the human resistance. Word spread quickly, and more people began to believe that victory was possible. David's group became the nucleus of a growing rebellion, attracting new recruits eager to learn and fight. Sarah approached David after the mission. "We need to keep the pressure on them. We can't let them regroup." David agreed. "We will, but we also need to prepare for the final confrontation. The Zorathians won't back down easily." As the team continued to train and plan, the stakes grew higher. They knew that the Zorathians would retaliate with even greater force. But for the first time since the alien invasion began, humanity had hope, and a fighting chance to reclaim their world. Tensions escalated globally as the Zorathians increased their surveillance and oppression. Cities were under constant watch, and any sign of resistance was met with swift punishment. David's group, now larger and more skilled, began to strike back. Small, strategic attacks on Zorathian outposts demonstrated their growing power. The world watched with bated breath as humanity's latent abilities started to surface. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," David told his team. "We're fighting for the future of our species." The Zorathians, frustrated by the human resistance, began implementing harsher measures. Curfews were enforced, and any gatherings of more than a few people were prohibited. Public displays of defiance were met with brutal force. The atmosphere was tense, with fear and anger simmering just beneath the surface. In response, the human resistance stepped up their efforts. David and his team coordinated with other groups around the world, sharing tactics and strategies. They executed guerrilla-style attacks, hitting Zorathian patrols and supply lines, and freeing captured humans from alien prisons. One of the most daring operations involved an assault on a Zorathian communication hub. David, Sarah, and a team of their best operatives infiltrated the heavily guarded facility. Using their psychic abilities, they disabled security systems and neutralized guards without raising alarms. Once inside, they planted explosives and hacked into the communication network, downloading vital information about Zorathian troop movements and plans. As they made their escape, the facility erupted in explosions, a signal to the world that humanity was far from defeated. David and his team analyzed the stolen data, uncovering plans for a new Zorathian superweapon. "We can't let them deploy this," Sarah said, her eyes wide with concern. "It could wipe out entire cities." "We won't," David assured her, "but we need to find out where they're building it." A major breakthrough came when David managed to telepathically link with Zareth during a confrontation. He glimpsed the alien's thoughts and saw a vision of a powerful artifact hidden on Earth, something the Zorathians feared. "This could be our chance," he told Sarah. "If we can find this artifact, we might have a way to level the playing field." The vision David saw in Zareth's mind was of an ancient crystalline structure buried deep within a remote mountain range. It pulsated with a strange energy that resonated with the latent psychic powers in humans. According to the vision, this artifact had the potential to amplify those powers exponentially. David and Sarah quickly gathered their team and briefed them on the mission. "This is risky," David said, "but if we can get to the artifact before the Zorathians, it could change everything." They set out on a perilous journey, traveling through treacherous terrain and evading Zorathian patrols. The team faced numerous challenges: natural obstacles, hostile wildlife, and the constant threat of discovery. Each member of the team used their unique abilities to overcome these obstacles, their skills growing stronger with every test. As they neared the location of the artifact, they encountered an ancient temple, hidden beneath layers of rock and vegetation. The entrance was guarded by intricate puzzles and traps, designed to protect the powerful relic within. Working together, they deciphered the puzzles, using their psychic abilities to manipulate the ancient mechanisms. Inside, they found the artifact, a massive crystalline structure glowing with an otherworldly light. As David approached it, he felt a surge of energy coursing through him, enhancing his abilities beyond anything he had ever experienced. "We need to secure this and get it back to our base," David said, his voice filled with awe. "This is the key to defeating the Zorathians." But as they prepared to transport the artifact, they were ambushed by a Zorathian squad led by Zareth himself. A fierce battle ensued, with both sides wielding incredible powers. David and his team fought valiantly, using their enhanced abilities to hold off the Zorathians. In the heat of the battle, David managed to tap into the artifact's energy, creating a powerful psychic blast that drove the Zorathians back. Zareth, realizing he was outmatched, retreated, vowing to return. With the artifact in their possession, David and his team returned to their base. The artifact's energy not only amplified their abilities, but also seemed to rejuvenate and heal them. They shared their newfound power with other resistance groups, uniting humanity in their fight against the Zorathians. "We have the means to fight back now," David announced to the Global Resistance Network. "This is our turning point. We will reclaim our world." The discovery of the artifact and the subsequent battles marked a significant shift in the war against the Zorathians. Empowered and united, humanity was ready to launch a full-scale offensive to drive the invaders from their planet once and for all. David and a select group of psychically gifted humans embarked on a perilous journey to locate the artifact. Their journey took them through ancient ruins, dense forests, and treacherous mountains. Along the way, they faced Zorathian traps and local wildlife, their abilities growing with each challenge. After weeks of searching, they finally found it, a crystalline structure pulsating with energy. As David touched it, he felt a surge of power flow through him, enhancing his psychic abilities exponentially. The team set out, armed with the coordinates they had deciphered from the Zorathian data. They traversed hostile environments, relying on their enhanced abilities to survive. Telekinetic barriers protected them from falling debris in the ruins of an ancient city, while telepathy allowed them to communicate silently, avoiding detection by Zorathian patrols. One night, as they camped in a dense forest, they were ambushed by Zorathian drones. The team quickly mobilized, using their powers to fight off the attackers. David concentrated, creating a telekinetic shield that deflected the drones' energy blasts, while Sarah used her pyrokinesis to disable them with bursts of flame. After the skirmish, the group pushed forward, weary but determined. They reached the base of a formidable mountain range, the final obstacle before the artifact's location. Scaling the treacherous cliffs, they used their abilities to navigate the perilous path. Teleportation allowed them to cross gaps that would have been insurmountable, and levitation helped them bypass sheer rock faces. As they neared the artifact's resting place, they encountered an ancient temple, hidden beneath layers of earth and vegetation. The entrance was adorned with symbols and puzzles, designed to protect the powerful relic within. Working together, they deciphered the puzzles, manipulating the ancient mechanisms with their combined psychic abilities. Inside, the air hummed with energy. The artifact, a massive crystalline structure, stood at the center of the chamber, pulsating with an otherworldly light. David approached it cautiously, feeling the immense power radiating from it. When he touched the crystal, a surge of energy flowed through him, amplifying his abilities beyond anything he had ever experienced. Sarah and the others also felt the artifact's power enhancing their own abilities. "This is incredible," she said, her voice filled with awe. "We need to get this back to the Resistance." But their discovery had not gone unnoticed. As they prepared to leave, Zareth and a squad of Zorathian soldiers appeared, having tracked them to the temple. A fierce battle ensued, with both sides wielding incredible powers. David and his team fought valiantly, using their enhanced abilities to hold off the Zorathians. David focused on Zareth, their minds clashing in a psychic duel. The artifact's energy bolstered David, allowing him to counter Zareth's attacks with newfound strength. As the battle raged on, David tapped into the artifact's power, creating a powerful psychic blast that forced the Zorathians to retreat. Armed with the artifact, David and his allies returned to the front lines. The Zorathians launched a massive assault on Earth's major cities, determined to crush the human resistance once and for all. David led the defense, using his enhanced powers to shield his comrades and strike back at the invaders. The battle raged on, humans and Zorathians clashing in a spectacular display of might and willpower. "Hold the line," David shouted, his voice echoing through the chaos. "We can win this." The artifact had transformed the resistance into a formidable force. As the Zorathians descended upon Earth's cities, they were met with fierce resistance. David's team, now bolstered by the artifact's power, led the charge. Telekinetic shields deflected enemy fire, and pyrokinesis created walls of flame to block advancing troops. Sarah coordinated the resistance efforts, using her enhanced telepathy to communicate with leaders across the globe. The human forces moved with precision, executing coordinated attacks that caught the Zorathians off guard. The battlefield was a chaotic symphony of energy blasts, psychic barriers, and the sounds of combat. In the heart of the battle, David faced Zareth once more. The Zorathian leader was determined to reclaim the artifact and crush the human rebellion. Their duel was intense, with psychic energies clashing in a dazzling display of power. David felt the artifact's energy coursing through him, giving him the strength to counter Zareth's attacks. As the battle reached its peak, David realized that the artifact could be used to create a massive psychic wave capable of disabling the Zorathian forces. "We need to channel our powers together," he called out to his team. "We can end this." Gathering around the artifact, David and his team focused their combined energies. The crystal pulsed with light, growing brighter as it absorbed their power. Zareth, sensing the danger, launched a desperate attack, but it was too late. The artifact unleashed a wave of energy that swept across the battlefield, neutralizing the Zorathian forces. The sudden silence was deafening. The Zorathians, their technology disabled and their minds overwhelmed, were forced to retreat. The human resistance erupted in cheers, the realization of their victory dawning upon them. David looked around at his comrades, their faces filled with relief and triumph. "We did it," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "We've reclaimed our world." The victory was not without cost. Many had fallen in the battle, and the cities lay in ruins. But the spirit of humanity was unbroken. They had faced the might of an alien invader and emerged victorious, united by their newfound powers and determination. As they began the arduous task of rebuilding, David addressed the global resistance. "This is our new beginning," he said. "We have shown that we are stronger together, that we can overcome any challenge. The future is ours to shape." The artifact, now a symbol of hope and unity, was placed in a secure location, to be studied and safeguarded. Its power had been the key to their victory, and its potential for the future was limitless. The tide of battle slowly turned in humanity's favor. The artifact's power gave David and his team the edge they needed. One by one, the Zorathian ships fell from the sky, their soldiers retreating in disarray. In a final showdown, David faced Zareth. The alien leader was formidable, but David's determination and newfound power proved stronger. With a decisive psychic blast, he defeated Zareth, sending the remaining Zorathians fleeing. The day of victory was surreal. The skies, once filled with the ominous presence of Zorathian ships, were now clear. Humanity stood victorious on a battlefield littered with the remnants of the alien invasion. David and his team, though exhausted, felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. The news of the Zorathians' retreat spread quickly. Celebrations erupted worldwide, a collective sigh of relief and joy resonating through every corner of the globe. People poured into the streets, embracing one another, tears of happiness streaming down their faces. David stood at the forefront, his team by his side. He addressed the world through a live broadcast, his voice firm and filled with pride. "Today we have reclaimed our planet. We have shown the universe that humanity is not to be underestimated. This victory belongs to all of us."